that independence.
And this is an important point, because the notes also show that both men pushed back against Trump, telling him, quote, "We are doing our job. Much of the information you're getting is false." But Bill, what if somebody else had been in that job, right? I mean, right now there is a big effort. Again, this is about the future, not just the past. There's a big effort to take some of these people who were guardrails. Governor Kemp in Georgia, whatever you think of him, he was a guardrail. Secretary of State Raffensperger in Georgia. There is an effort to replace them with sycophants who will do what Trump wants.
Right, and it came closer than we realized. Who was the conversation was December 27th, I believe. It was with acting Attorney General Rosen. Why was he acting Attorney General? Because Bill Barr had quit or been fired 10 days before, because Bill Barr, who was not a shrinking violet in terms of helping Donald Trump and pushing the edge of the envelope in terms of using the Justice Department in a pretty White House-friendly way, knew he couldn't stay because of what he was about to be asked to do. Rosen almost gets fired and replaced by another lower-level assistant attorney general who Trump thought would do his bidding. Mark Esper, the defense secretary, had been fired the week after the election. So the degree to which the key, think of this as a foreign country, the defense secretary is fired, a bunch of cronies put in there. Attorney general fired or quit, someone's put in there. It's lucky that even though Esper was gone, Mark Milley held the line at defense. It's lucky that acting Attorney General Rosen seems to have held the line at justice. But the degree to which this was a genuine attempt at usurpation of power by a sitting president is just something we can't forget. And then it does make it amazing that he's still the leader of the Republican Party and is going about purging the people at the state level who also checked his usurpation, the Secretary of State of Georgia, officials in Michigan, and others.
Yeah, I mean, but the guardrails held this time.
Right.
This time.
Mm-hmm. And that's what's terrifying to me. If this was any other country, as you intimated, like, we would launch an investigation. We would be talking about what's happening overseas, but it happened here. And I think sometimes people are comforted that the guardrails held, and so like, well, let's move on. Let's talk about something else now. But we can't do that, because the only way that we can guarantee that this doesn't happen again is that there are actual consequences for the President of the United States and for members of the major party, the Republican Party, trying to overturn an election. There has to be consequences to these actions.
You know, it's so strange, though.